try and make this simple. So I've got everything open and ready to show you. But to start, these are the settings I have right now. I keep this off or else you're going to get a bunch of random images you don't want. This will just be where your models folder is. It should be auto-filled. Let's see. This you'll want on. It makes it easier to use your LoRa's. You can change this if you want. Just make sure that the window that you use pops open when you open the program. I always keep this on balanced or your computer will get slowed down if you have it on the high. Load makes it take forever. Do not use CPU. It makes it take very long and then the quality is worse. Everything else is kind of standard, pretty simple. I would use this. I would keep the beta off unless there's something specific that you want to use that requires it. And then this doesn't really matter. But right now, I just have the basic stuff loaded up, as well as a few example things. So for models, I have this one selected just to show what it does. That's this. So here you see it's checkpoint merge. That means it's a model. If it says checkpoint or checkpoint merge, anything similar to checkpoint, you would save it in your models folder, which I'll show you how to get to that. So you find your easy diffusion, just open the location, and then it doesn't open it for some reason, so you do it again. But then you can go up and you'll see models, so you can double click that. Now there's different kinds of models. If it just says checkpoint or something similar to that, it goes into stable diffusion. So you'll just download it and drag it into that folder. And then, for example, this is a LoRa. It says here, LoRa. This one specifically adds more details to your art. So if it says LoRa, you'll just go to that same folder. Instead of dragging it into here, you'll drag it into the LoRa folder. And then the last thing that's useful is the embeddings. And kind of same thing, download it, and then you drag it into your embeddings folder. To kind of describe what each of those do, an embedding is like something in here, you'd put it in negative prompt or positive prompt. I only use negatives because they're a little more helpful. So I have easy negative, you'd just go plus negative embedding and you'll see the ones that you have, and then just plus it. The one I'm using basically puts a bunch of negative prompts that are common that you don't want in your art, like bad anatomy, bad hands, extra heads, things like that, and tries to remove them from the art. And then the other one I have is bad hands, which is just it uses a lot of models of good hands to make sure the hands aren't as messed up as they usually get. And then text and signature are just words I put in there because sometimes it'll draw words on your art and you don't want that. The model I'm using is like anime style, so I renamed it just so it's easier for me to tell what it is, so I renamed it anime. And then the LoRa's I'm using are more details, the one I just showed you, and eyes anime. It basically just makes anime eyes more detailed. The number you want to select between 0 and 1, so I'm using 0.7, just works better. If you do like if you do like a full 1, it'll try using this even more. If you want to like tone it back on details, if you're doing something more like chibi style, LoRa detail, put this at like 3. And that just goes for all LoRa's. The higher the number, the more it's going to try and use it. Output format you want on PNG because you don't lose any data on this type of format. The other two you will. I keep this off because it just uses more CPU for no reason. This helps make it better. This, I'm not sure if you'll see this or not. I forget what this comes from. Maybe an add-on or something, but you can turn it on to fix faces. I don't use it because it messes up the style a lot of the time. You can manually use it, which I'll show you in a little bit. Scale up, I do by 4 times because that gives you a bigger image, more detail. You should have a couple options. I just use the 4 times one. There's one meant for anime too. I never actually remember to switch it to that. It'd probably help if I did, so I'll do that now. And only the upscaled image, so it'll only show you the finished product. You probably want that on. And then I think that's all here. I do one image 3 times just to get 3 different images all next to each other to kind of get a good idea if the prompt I'm using is working well. Image size, you always want to have it on one of these asterisks unless you're using like a specific image to base it on, just because this is the size that the models are trained on. So 512 by 768 is going to be the best. Most of the time it's portrait. If you want landscape style, then you just change it to 768 by 512. You can use these bigger numbers with certain models. I would not recommend it though, because they usually don't work. So just do 512 by 768. Negative prompts where you're going to put things you don't want. I leave it blank because I already have these to help with that. But if there's something specific you keep getting in your images, just put a comma and then type what you don't want to see, like daytime, if you really want a nighttime image and it's not giving it to you. For example, on this one, let's just do high detail masterpiece, just to make sure the image is high quality. And then you start your prompt on what you want. I want, let's see, a girl, long black hair, armor, oops, outside, red eyes. Just make 3 images. I typoed, but should still work. Might not. Probably going a little slow since I'm recording, but that's fine. Typo. Watch out. Alright, that'll produce a bunch of images like this, but you can of course get a lot more specific. Watch out, kitty. Hurry, lay down. Also, if you like to do the fixing that I was talking about earlier, you can right click or just hover over it and it should say fix faces, but these faces are fine, so it doesn't need to be done. If you want to make similar images, there's an option for it. If you want to change something about the image, you can use it as the input, so that'll put it as if you were uploading an art to base it on. And then if you do that, make sure that this seed here, you put here, turn off random and just use the same seed. It's better to keep random on because you'll get more variety out of your pictures otherwise though. Cat is stepping on keyboard. I like to keep my most basic ones at the very front here because I don't have to change them if I want a different piece of art. Like let's say I just want some landscape now. So like outside, forest, landscape, nature, things like that. Maybe I want it to be nighttime. Post making this difficult. Moon, and then let's say there wants to be some water, do water, and then reflections, because you want your water to have high detail, so add in some reflections. Since this is going to be a landscape, I'll change this. This model is mainly meant for like anime characters. I'm not sure how well it'll work with the landscape, but it still usually does a decent job. Yeah, so they're not great. There's some lower detail stuff, but you still get decent landscapes. You see basically what you're asking for. If you want to fix specific things, you could use it as the input image and then do end painting, which I'll show in a second. But most of these are fine. So let's see. Use this input. Preserve color you want on. Turn on end painting. And then you could just draw what you want changed, like if you didn't want this building. Just draw over it, and then in the prompts, you can write what you want instead, just more trees, something like that. But just fill it in. And then save it, and then you can type like trees, plants, something like that. And then just to get into the more detail on what these numbers mean, inference step is how many steps it processes what you asked it to. The more the better, but also the longer it'll take. 35 is the sweet spot I usually stick with, but anything like under 50 and above 30 is fine. Guidance scale is how much it follows your prompt. Anything above 12, it starts to get real weird because it's trying to be too specific with it. Lower, obviously, you won't get images that you're really wanting, so 7.5 to 12 is what I usually use. And I think that's pretty much everything, so if you have any more questions or anything like that, just let me know.